Are we going to do this? Are we going to go out on the streets again? That's not the question. The question should be, in my opinion, and that's what I'm, studying now and building very quietly, very, very quietly, is when we go out again, what are we going to say? What do we want? I don't know what about you guys, but I'm very much ADD. I watch only a third of what I see on YouTube, doesn't matter. That's the statistics, by the way. Change is not something that happens in a heartbeat. It takes time. It's a marathon. So you need to understand, okay, when we go out now, what do we want to achieve? And what kind of action do we as citizens start to take to bring that change? Not only to demand social justice, but to create it and become engaged in our community, in our lives. Because I think that it doesn't matter if you call it a fight for democracy or fight for something to do. I think that Shireen said it in a very precise way. It's about being heard. It's about having control over your own life. And I think that in that way, when we do go out on the street, the message that we should have is that we want the keys back to the car, to have control over our lives. And we need to understand what it means, basically. So, First of all, it is incredibly important to state that you cannot do anything like that by yourself. A movement like this that happened in Israel is driven by support of many people that want change, that go out on the street. You have Shir here, who is also a part of the movement that is sitting here. So you can't do that alone. How did it get so big? How did it get so mainstream? I think that it's a combination of being authentic and not from a party, not like a PR background, nothing like that. Because I think that spontaneous movements start from the gut. It's very much like what my fellow activists, revolutionaries are here saying as well. And so I think it's, and real issues, real problems that I think that everybody has like a red line that if it's being crossed, then you're willing to sacrifice something of yourself.
So what was that red line for so many people in the tents in Israel?
I think, well, the tent movement started out of a housing problem. But what we found out, and I can say that now out of experience and, learning a lot of things during those past 8 months, is that by saying housing, you say everything. Because for some people, housing is the pensions, and for some people, it's the mortgages, and for some are the rent, and for some are just, the fact that minimum wage is so incredibly low. And all of a sudden, the most essential thing, the most basic thing, which is a roof over your head, is endangered, and it's not something that you can count on. So I think that it was, we had some protest issues about fuel, and then another about cottage cheese, when, the public kind of boycotted cottage cheese because it was like $2 a piece. And after that, I opened an event that was incredibly naive, I think, in a way, because it was
in a good way. Naive in a good way.
Yes, I think that naive is always good. But I think that it's always about hitting that nerve that is not only from your head,
It's so interesting as we bring these lessons home to a campus like GW. The Israeli tent movement, in a way, looked more like the Occupy movement than like uprisings in the other parts of the Middle East, in part because we were fighting for social justice, economic equality. So can you tell us a bit about the process by which all these diverse complaints become a central mission statement, and how a leaderless movement eventually finds its captains just to help steer the ship in the right direction?
When you said captains, you mean the government?
That's the thing. No, you guys. People always say there are no leaders to these movements, but in a sense, in a way, you at least become the voices that help steer things and to communicate to people like us who aren't in them what you guys are all about. So how does that happen?
Okay, so first question is about what is social justice?
How do you centralize your mission? How do you focus on what you're fighting for?
Well, I think it's something that is very basic. It's much like the fact that storytelling hasn't really changed through the entire history of the world. It's always, you know, it might have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but not in that order, but it's always about the same core issues. I mean, we're human beings, and our core is very much alike. I mean, I think we'll find, if it's unemployment or the fact that you work in Israel, you work, I did the math like a while back, 365 days a year, right? So out of that, if you, averagely, people in Israel will go to work, go from work, and sleep 111 days straight out of 365. So that is insane. So it's either you don't have any work, or you work all the time and you don't have any free time and you don't get anything back. It's all about, I think, that the most fundamental things. I think that most of us are not here to occupy anything, you know, or, you know, we don't want to take over the world. We're not Pinky in the Brain, you know. Thank God I'm not the only one who watched it. But we just want to have a decent life and to have time. So I think that I'm a filmmaker, so I don't have all the economical information, but I do know this one thing, that the best films and the best storytelling is always the most universal. Anybody can address it, find themselves in it, but it's also incredibly specific. Like, you kind of look at the dude from Big Lebowski and you say, wow, I never saw anybody like that, you know? So I think that's how it became big, and that's why social justice is something that is intuitive. And I think the group that was assembled, I think it was amazing. In some way, I started believing in karma in a very big way, because there was a point when I said, wow, it's like there are these 10 people, 11 people around me. One of them is sitting here, you know, and everybody has this huge capability, and we didn't know each other from before. How did we keep it, steering it to the right direction? I think that we did some mistakes, by the way. But most of all, we took chances, and we kept thinking about that story. How do you tell this story? Because in the end of the day, if you want to bring people out, it has to come from their gut, and they need to understand that it's not somebody else's problem, it's their problem, you know? In a way that, for example, people in the other side of the world, you know, are feeling touched because people from the United States, for example, felt like their problem is, you know, it's a global problem, it's our problem too.
Even with that sense of mission, was there ever a moment when you were afraid, when you were putting yourself physically on the line, camping out for a cause?
Yeah. I mean, little did we know, but first week in the tent movement, it just exploded. You know, like first day there were 1,500 people. Some of them I knew, you know, and then I have close friends who, you know, quit their jobs and just came. When we're not activists, as I said, I'm a filmmaker. I don't come from that background, and it just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And like little did we know that there were like 300 undercover police coalition, whatever. And like the first week and a half, I was bugged. My phone was bugged for months. For example, yeah, I mean, it's scary. You are fighting. I think that is a general thing. We are fighting here for a better world, for a social justice is something that is very general but very intuitive, and we're fighting people who have the most power, the most money, the most freedom of movement and connections. It's like they're playing Monopoly with our lives, and they are capable of building as many hotels as they want.